Alright everybody, and welcome back to the Control Academy. I'm your host Marshall, and we're here today with a really spicy deck that I'm calling Slug Control. I took a little bit of time off the holidays. I re-evaluated myself a little bit, took a breather, and decided that, I want to be my slimiest self in 2022. So that's why we're starting a year off with a deck featuring Toxrill the Corrosive. This card as a top-end threat is fantastic. It's a 7/7 for 7, which is a decent enough line on its own. It's a legendary slug horror. There's not a whole lot to complain about when it comes to that creature type. And look at this whole thing here. The art is just disgusting. I love it. But then when you get to this big wall of text, it's a card that basically just takes creature decks and just churns them into non-stop value. At the beginning of each end step, not just your end step, every end step, it puts a slime counter on each creature you don't control, and then creatures you don't control get -1/-1 for each slime counter on them. All right, it's kind of like a slow but potentially scalable Elish Norn as it is. That's pretty sweet. And then you read on further, whenever a creature you don't control with a slime counter on it dies, you get to create a 1/1 black slug creature token. This beautiful little thing that you get to see out the side here that apparently has a skull in the middle of it. That's cool. That's pretty sweet. Churn your opponent's creatures into blockers. Elish Norn can't do that, really. And then this last line of text just puts it over the top, kind of the bane of any mono-black EDH player, but certainly to our benefit in this deck, is you can pay a blue and a black, sacrifice a slug, draw a card. Boom. If this hits the board and your opponent has any creatures, it's almost certainly going to be your game pretty quick. So, I decided to take a couple of cards that I've been interested in trying. Obviously, we've got Hullbreaker Horror as another top-end threat. We've seen this in other decks. It's hard to not put this in any deck that can play it. But we're also playing Jacob Hauken and Spectre. Now, as a Merfolk Looter, this card's pretty decent. If you play him in the early game, it just lets you sort of churn through your deck. But if you get to 6 mana, you flick it over, and it's essentially an As Foretold that gets you more and more cards every turn. So every card you, not discard, but exile from your hand with Jacob Hauken's ability, when it does flip to the Hauken's Insight, you get to play one for free during each of your turns. Now that's really cool, because if you happen to exile a Toxrill or a Hullbreaker Horror to it, you just get to play it for free, and that's pretty sweet. And what's kind of cool about this is that the transformation is difficult to impossible to respond to after you've already committed to it. What a lot of people will try to do is wait until you've decided whether you pay the 6 mana to transform Jacob and then try to remove it. But the issue is that if you read the way that this ability goes through, once the ability is on the stack and you have the option to pay the 6 mana, it's going to flip. There is no priority passing at which you can take actions such as casting a removal spell or doing something to prevent the ability from going off. Like, it's going to happen at that point. And so you can get people misplaying into it pretty frequently, which is pretty helpful to our cause. And if you're playing in paper, you do need to recognize that, yes, this is a single ability where once the ability is allowed to resolve, it's going to resolve. This has posed some interesting deck building restrictions on us because we want to make sure that, especially since Hauken's Insight is going to exile a card off the top of our deck every turn once it's on the battlefield, that we have as few duds as possible. So you'll see that the only hard counterspell we're drawing in the deck is Test of Talents. And this is just because the Izzet decks make us keep them honest. If we don't have this, there's a chance we just straight up lose to the Galvanic Epiphany combo. But otherwise, we want things that are act as counterspells and interactions that are ideally not dependent on being attached to an instant. So we have Malevolent Hermit as our way to counter most non-creature spells. We have Overcharged Amalgam as this really interesting 4-mana just general counterspell, but it also happens to have a stifle effect on it. And so as a 3/3 for 4 that you can potentially cast for free off of Jacob Hauken, this is pretty good. But also just throughout the game, being able to exploit either a Malevolent Hermit or the backside of it, or even just itself to hard counter some things that our opponents wouldn't necessarily think of us being able to hard counter. That's pretty powerful for us. And so again, we're trying to make sure that we can't, or that we don't have any bad plays at the top of the Jacob Hauken. Similarly, that's why Memory Deluge is not in the deck, and we're going with Thirst for Discovery. Memory Deluge, if you pay 0 mana for it, you'd look at 0 cards off the top of your deck, so that's a little bit rough. Here for Thirst for Discovery, draw 3, discard 2 is not quite as good as Memory Deluge, but if we can draw 3, discard a basic, of which we have 9 in this deck, that's not so bad. I like that a lot. We're drawing Consider as our sort of early game card draw ability, running 1 Fading Hope just because it's too good not to. We've got Infernal Grasp as our primary removal spell. It's really good. It's fine underneath Jacob Hauken. It works against pretty much everything. Love it. Divide by 0 is really great. And then we've got Baleful Mastery as a way to remove planeswalkers or things like Coma that are hard to deal with Infernal Grasp. The last major choice that's worth talking about here is Path of Peril. Now, if you've watched my previous videos, you know I love Path of Peril. It is hard not to feel safe against the mono white and especially the red-green decks that are getting more popular with Path of Peril in the deck, because the 3-mana mode is just, usually a one-sided wrath against them. We are primarily playing creatures at 4 and up, so that's not so bad. And the things that are 2 and below are close to expendable in most cases anyway. In this deck, because we are a blue-black deck, the cleave mode is not straightforward to engage, and so I've included a Hengegate Pathway and a Brightclimb Pathway as a way to hopefully by the time we get to 6 mana have a white source. And actually, I should probably include a single plains here that we can tutor out. So there we go. Now we got a plains. That is an oversight that I've just rectified. So this being something that we can grab with environmental sciences if we have to. But for the most part, it means that there's just a few white sources. So that way, eventually we can cleave the Path of Peril. And so otherwise, we are running Field of Ruin. We got 4 of them. We can afford it in this deck. There is always going to be the argument of whether we should be running a snow mana base and then Blood on the Snow. In this case, I've actually tried that version, and it seems really great on paper. It's a tall order. And so in that particular version of the deck, I just always found that by the time I could cast a Blood on the Snow, it didn't matter anymore. And that didn't feel great. Now, you will notice that the cleave side of Path of Peril is not something you can cast off of Jacob Hauken. And that is something we just have to live with. Hopefully by the time we're casting that many free spells, we'll be able to get there one way or another. But this is the deck. It's meant to be a really great value deck that is very reactive and ramps up to the slimiest boy you've ever seen. And it's a lot of fun. So let's go ahead and try it out in some games, and I'll see you there. All right, our first opponent is Avacyn, apparently. If only choosing your username would give the abilities to your creatures, that would be terrifying here. This isn't the best hand I've ever had. It has sort of virtual removal, but it's got a lot of ways to draw into things. So, I'm not thrilled about this, but, I think I will keep it just to sort of see what happens. And we do have black. It's just kind of slow black. More slow black. Gotta love it. So I'll drop an island, and we'll consider this turn, and then probably Jacob Hauken next turn. Against mono black, we've got a little bit of time to play, and the divide by 0 can be pretty decent, but we'll sort of see how we can sculpt our hand a little bit. Yep, seems good. What will they learn? This is an interesting card in paper. It's a common, and yet in paper it's like $5. It's insane. And I'm not complaining because I've got a ton of copies of it, but just goes to show you that, like, even in 2022, there are some commons that will catch you off guard in terms of how much they'll cost you to cast. Monetarily, anyway. But ceiling curtains. Interesting. All right. That's interesting. I can divide by 0 when they go to flip it, and that's probably the best play, honestly. It's not the scariest thing on the backside, but I just kind of don't want to deal with that, if I'm being honest. So I'll wait on Jacob Hauken. There's no hurry. But if they want to spend 3 mana to flip this, I will happily spend 3 mana to punish them for it. And there we go. And I will... I've got 5 cards in hand. They've got 7 cards in hand. I can probably Teachings here. I'll take it. I might regret it, though. I've got plenty of land, which is the main reason I'm not going nuts on grabbing environmental sciences. I'm probably going to be putting some lands underneath Jacob, honestly. Yeah, so it's not guaranteed that we'll be able to draw anything off of Teaching Archaics yet. This is, yeah, they're trying to dump their hand just to do it, and that's fine. Let's see, activate Jacob. Shipwreck Marsh is not quite what I wanted to see, but go ahead and put an island underneath Jacob. Infernal Grasp ain't bad. I'm going to, once again, make them tap their Concealing Curtains to do it. So now they're at 5 cards in hand. We're at 6. If I had enough mana to Infernal Grasp now and then cast the Teachings of the Archaics, I'd do it, but I don't. There is a chance that through this process that we'll get to test the talents, either a removal spell or honestly, I'd take a Deadly Dispute off them at this point. I'll take Duress too, because I would rather not have to worry about that moving forward. There's not a lot of amazing Test of Talents targets in this deck, just in general. So in this case, we'll get a lot of information. They're sitting on piles of removal. I'm surprised that they haven't tried to kill Jacob Hauken yet, honestly. They've got a Wrath. That's good to know about. They're only running 2 copies of Duress. That's interesting. What else they got in here? Wealth. Okay. It's a pretty standard mono black deck. Except they're running more discard than the average player. I'm going to do that. And boom. It's a Pretend Time Walk. They'll attack. Or maybe they won't. Who knows? And I'll activate Jacob Hauken. That's not quite what I wanted to see. Flooding out a bit without a real good top-end threat, and that's not really ideal. They've got 5 cards in hand. If I play a land, I'm going to play a white source just so I don't forget to. Now I can Teachings for full value, so that's pretty cool. Well, not full value. I can Teachings just in general. That's non-zero value. That's really where I want to be. And at this point, I'm still kind of in sit-and-see mode. I suspect that they're going to try to kill this Jacob Hauken at some point. They've got the removal for days. We do have a backup one, but if they let us get another mana, then we're just going to be able to flip it. So, Master Blockers. Are they trying to get a cheap Meat Hook Massacre? You know what? I don't care about 1 damage. Like, I suspect they're gonna Meat Hook, and that's part of why they're trying to do that. But I don't want them to have to. I want them to have to tap out to do it. Basically, is what it comes down to. It would be awesome if they would try to extend themselves a little bit further. And maybe they will. Okay, because if I can get to 6 mana and I can flip this in response to whatever they do to try to kill it. Okay, so here's... This is a bizarre way to do that. Alright, well anyway. So I might be able to actually flip this Jacob Hauken. Not that it's been particularly valuable in that regard. Put the Hengegate Pathway underneath there. We've already got our one obligatory white source. My turn. Path of Peril ain't bad. So I'm going to play Shipwreck Marsh. And now in response to whatever they try to do to kill it, that's when I will flip Jacob Hauken. Right now they don't yet have anything worth killing, so I'm just going to sit and wait for them to take the initiative. I've got a nice life total. I don't really have anything useful underneath this Jacob Hauken, but if I can get it over to its backside, then it's going to be pretty good. Question will be how, because they technically have enough mana to put a Meathook Massacre on the stack and then Infernal Grasp. It's possible. Interesting. Has to blockers, no blocks. Take it. So the right play here is to Meathook Massacre, and then if I try to transform with it on the stack, Infernal Grasp. We'll see if they actually do that. Our opponent is playing reasonably well, but that's one way to do it. I'm going to try to flip. If they let the ability resolve, then they let it resolve. Holy mackerel. I'm going to go ahead and put... see, I really just don't have a lot of great options there. I'll put a Jacob Hauken underneath it. And I will auto pay. What you gonna do now? Their hand is not really exciting at 3 mana, so... They could have Infernal Grasp at instant speed, but I think they, like a lot of players, didn't realize that once they let me draw a card, they can't do anything about it. Alright, yet another Jacob Hauken is not really what I wanted to see there. But to heck with it. That is probably our best course of action. Continue to loot if they kill it. Big deal. Play a Faceless Haven for the turn. And now we're actually sitting on some good stuff. If they want a Wrath, I will, with the Blood on the Snow, I'll happily deal with that. Otherwise, we can Thirst for Discovery. We can Infernal Grasp. I'm feeling good about where we're at. The question here is, do I want to take all their Infernal Grasps? And I kind of do, because if I get on to Toxrill, yeah, let's just do this, because, like, at the end of the day... Oh, they only have one more. Well, they're playing weird numbers of each card. Like, if you're gonna play Infernal Grasp... Oh, they've had enough of it. They're just tired of being controlled. That game was going to snowball pretty well in our favor, and, you know, getting to flip that Hauken's Insight was pretty good. Totally preventable by our opponent, but oh well. Game 2. All right. First opponent here, Sin 3. Maybe it's Sign, who knows. His hand is not incredible, but we've got some card draw, some virtual removal at the top end, so give it a shot. Boom. I think we're finally on the play for once, so that's cool. Won't complain about being on the play. And our opponent is playing Swamps, so that's unclear. Overcharged Amalgam. It's going to be a little bit of a while until I can play that, so let's go ahead and dump it. Won't complain about a Malevolent Hermit. Don't really need black mana yet, so I'm going to wait on this white source for now. Play Jacob Hauken. Malevolent Hermit's a little bit better if we can potentially have another blue source to leave up. Magda. Interesting. Alright, so the question here is, do I want to play Malevolent Hermit to potentially block the Magda? Or do I want to leave up Divide by 0? Either way, I'm not double spelling. I think if I don't put this on black, I'm going to regret it, so I'm going to do that. And then drop a Malevolent Hermit. Hopefully disincentivizes them from attacking. At this point, I've got to treat Jacob Hauken as just a merfolk looter. So, custom blockers. I can flash the Malevolent Hermit back, so it's not the worst thing to just jump with. But anyway, I have to treat this just as kind of as a merfolk looter and not put amazing cards underneath it, because the chances that it lives are pretty low. Skullport Merchant. Interesting, interesting, interesting. Alright. Draw with Jacob. Well, we are Toxrill flooded. Throw the Consider underneath it. It's probably our least impactful blue card in our hand. That's not ideal, but I'll draw with Jacob again and just sort of see. Okay, we were able to get a land. I don't really want to put any of this underneath Jacob Hauken. It exiles face down, so it's fine. Not particularly enthusiastic about this, but at least I've got 2 Toxrills in hand. I literally drew all of my top end, which is amazing, but also awful. So, in this case, I think I want to leave up Divide by 0 so I can potentially divide. I want to protect myself against any big threats that they might have, but also be able to grab a environmental sciences out of the sideboard. Whew. And yep, I will send that right back where it came from. No problemo. 4 by 3. Can't really grab teachings yet, but environmental sciences will do. Infernal Grasp is not a bad draw. Take it. Environmental sciences. In this case, I'm going to need double blue to flip Jacob, so grab that. There's non-zero chance that we get there, honestly, if our opponent keeps letting us. I'll still happily divide by 0 very aggressively, especially with this gold span coming. There's always a chance that we can loot into a land, but don't particularly want to risk having to put another amazing card underneath there. All right, so now they've got 5, we've got 3. So the question is, do we teachings or environmental science? Either way, we're not double spelling next turn, so I'm going to teachings. See if we can get more action that way. See if they attack. Yeah. So here we loot, and then worst case scenario. Oh, there's a lot of worst case scenarios here. I'll put a Fading Hope underneath there. Seems decent. It's another way to deal with a gold span dragon, even though it's not ideal. All right, well that ain't bad. That ain't bad at all, because now I can put all sorts of fun stuff underneath it. Yeah, YOLO. Activate ability. Gonna grab that. Put Toxrill underneath it. Flip Jacob. Play Toxrill. We got 2 Toxrills too, so if they kill this one, it's gonna be good. Now they're gonna get their gold span, but we're sitting on removal. I mean, I'm not out of the woods, but we're at a decent life total. We got a decent amount of mana, and we've got a lot of possibilities here. So, gelatinous cube. Well, it's going to cost them a lot to deal with that. So I can actually get my Toxrill back from that pretty easily. Free divide by 0 is not bad at all. So if I cast Teachings, I'll draw 2 cards. Like it. Kind of wish I hadn't played my land just yet, but leaving up 4 mana is nice because we got Fading Hope and Infernal Grasp. Gonna go ahead and I would like to make as good of use of my Toxrills as possible. So I'm gonna kill that, my Toxrill back, and then I still got this up that I can do for 0. So going to, if I divide the merchant, can't do this at instant speed, so that's a fair point. We're gonna get slammed with a divide by 0. Talked myself into it. Get other Teachings. Now my opponent's going to gold span into Skullport Merchant, and so they're going to snowball back up pretty quickly. But I like where I'm at. I don't think that there's an easy way for them to remove Hauken's Insight, so sup Goldspan. Take 5, unfortunately. Alright, so I'm going to Shipwreck Marsh. Then let's see. Fading Hope, the gold span. Yeah, resolve. What are you gonna do? Not bad. Okay. Resolve. And let's see. Go ahead and disturb the Malevolent Hermit. Attack. See if they block with Clane. Yep, it's going to die anyway, so they may as well save themselves the damage. Won't complain about that. They're sitting on 4 cards. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit difficult for me to deal with that. So I'll just leave up the mana. I can Thirst on their turn and I'll be fine. This is mostly just going to be a speed bump for the Goldspan Dragon. Like I do have to pay attention to my life total. Kind of wishing I put this Hullbreaker underneath the Hauken's Insight, but we'll get there. Olivia Crimson Bride. Okay. That is not ideal. So let's Thirst for Discovery. Yeah, not bad. Not bad at all. It's going to be a little while before. I'm just going to discard this, discard this, just like that. Then, yeah, resolve. Yeah, they're going to get some stuff back, but... Alright. Gelatinous Goop, folks. It's actually pretty decent. They're going to take the Benevolent Geist, really? No, of course. No, that would be silly. Sack a Slug. Block like that. All right. So 8 mana. I'm gonna get actually 8 mana, and then do I have anything? No. All right. I want a Path of Peril this turn anyway, so going to Hall of Storm Giants. Then I actually have the white mana to cleave this with, so I cleave that. Get my Sluggy Boy back. Go ahead and play a Thirst for Discovery for free. And discard a Hengegate Pathway and a Jacob Hauken. I want to leave up Test of Talents because there is a chance that they've just got decent removal. And I need to look like I might have a 2-mana removal spell. They're playing Olivia, which is awesome. I think Olivia Crimson Bride is super sweet. Oof, and this is... I'm getting so low on life. Yikes. Can't do anything about that, fortunately. My turn. Okay. Alright, let's go ahead and consider. I will keep a Baleful Mastery. That seems pretty good. Shipwreck Marsh. So I don't have enough mana to Hullbreaker Horror. Well, I could let them draw a card, and that would be fine, I guess. Alright. I'm gonna see how they play this, because there's a couple ways that this could go. I want to get as much value as I can. They still have me at a real risky place, but having Hullbreaker Horror and exile-based removal, like, things could be worse. So here, I am going to tap this for mana. Hullbreaker Horror. And then Thirst for Discovery. Turn this to your hand. It's a chance that they've got a removal spell as their last card in hand, but discard a swamp. Seems decent. Like, this is all very scary. Infernal Grasp would be great normally, but this is not a time where it's amazing. So we'll play Shipwreck Marsh from the Insight. Baleful Mastery is still kind of where I gotta be at this point. Let's see, I've got 11 mana. Yeah, right. I'm gonna threaten lethal. And that is one way to remove a Goldspan Dragon. Turn. I'll discard Field of Ruin. And there we go. Got there with the slimy boys. And Jacob. That was a good Jacob game, too. I'll take it. All right. Ruffiano. Let's see if we can end the night on a good streak here. This hand is considerably better than some of the ones I've been seeing recently. I will keep this in a heartbeat. It's got removal, it's got card draw, it's got wrath. I'm very happy with it. It's even got the random white source in case this wrath needs to be big. Aight. Got 2 white sources even. Ugh. How did I get so lucky? Let's see. I think getting Jacob online is more valuable here. Taking 2 from the pack leader is not super scary. They might take a turn off to fight this, and that's fine. In reality, there are other things that I want Infernal Grasp, and if I can get more value out of a Path of Peril later, then cool. I haven't seen Tangle Florahedron in these decks in a while, so that's interesting. Ouch. See, that wasn't so bad. I'll play this on blue. So now I've got a lot of good stuff. I'll just pass. Be able to draw a card with Jacob, potentially bounce whatever they got, and then, you know, sort of see how we're able to clean up. Werewolf pack leader. That is... Let's divide by 0. Just to get maximum value. So they're sitting on 6 cards, 4 cards. So I've got a land drop, so I can teachings. Should be able to teachings. Ouch. And let's see what we can snag with this. There's a thirst for discovery. And put that under Jacob. Baleful Mastery. Not complaining about that. Put this on white in case I end up needing it. Now I've got 5, they've got 6, so let's teach you the Archaic. Take a consider. Pass the turn. They certainly have plenty of things that I would like them to not be able to have, but let's see. There's the Blizzard Brawl. Let's go ahead and draw. Kind of saw that coming. I'll put the island underneath them. On one hand, I do want the mana, but on the other hand, at least I've got a land drop, so... Okay, go into attackers, and that's fine. My turn, I'll draw a card. Divide by 0. You know what? I'll keep that. Keep the tempo going. Eventually I want a Toxrill, but see what we can get. Alright, so here I have enough mana to Path of Peril and leave up Infernal Grasp and Baleful Mastery, so I'm going to do exactly that. Got Fading Hope as an option too. Feeling pretty okay. Do need a way to end the game, but we'll get there. My turn. Let's get the Scry. Oh, okay, sorry. I only had 1 more mana untapped. What else? Yeah, that's fine. For some reason, I thought I had enough mana untapped to Infernal Grasp in response, but in reality, I did not. I had the mana untapped faster, and I just missaw it. So that looked worse than it actually was. So 6 mana, 4 cards. Let's do this. I'm going to divide, so they can't pull tricks like that again in response. Get a Teachings. Let's draw 2. Cool. That's about as good of a rip as I could have hoped for, because now I got Wrath. I've got more removal. Old Growth Troll, something I'm happy to exile. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I'll probably bounce it instead, though. Just keep that train of moral rolling. Sculptor of Winter. All right. What you got? Let's go ahead and zippity-doo-dah. And we can Mascot Exhibition. Why not? And then they've been stuck on 3 for a while, and so this is probably not quite the right play. But they went out of their way to play the Sculptor and not the Pack Leader, so I feel like that means that they are trying to find a way to get to 4 mana. So, which is fine. We'll figure it out, but now I get some big butts. They got some big butts. Path of Peril is now slightly less good, but I'm totally okay with that. Let's consider. Oh, yeah, I'll draw that. Yeah, this is looking good. All right, so my goal number 1 is to exile that Old Growth Troll, so that next turn I can make them cry all the way home with Toxrill. Werewolf Pack Leader costs 4 to activate. Old Growth Troll. Alright, alright. They're going to do this. And then I'll go ahead and exile that. There's a chance that I end up regretting this because I eventually get up to mana for... what do you want to call it? A Planeswalker, but we'll deal with that when we get there. In the meantime, boom. Not even gonna... I want the slug, so gotta make sure we get that slime token covered. There we go. Toxrill ends that game. Woohoo! All right, that one felt good. Thanks for joining us, folks.